Cassie, you need to run away now. With those parting words, the call ended abruptly, and no matter how many times I redialed, I couldn't get through again. My usually calm mother's tone had been fraught with urgency, convincing me that something was definitely amiss. What could have happened to Mom? She had been battling illness for several years and had recently been hospitalized. We used to talk on the phone every day before her hospitalization, but since she had been admitted, the calls had stopped, which puzzled me. I rushed to the hospital, but by the time I arrived, my mother had already passed away. No. Overwhelmed with grief, I was at a loss for words. The hospital where my mother had been admitted was an hour or two away from my apartment. I regretted not acting sooner, thinking I could have been there. The meaning of her last words, "Run away right now," remained shrouded in mystery, and I would never come to know their significance. My name is Cassie. I'm a 25-year-old office worker. My parents divorced when I was very young, and my mother raised me with great care as a single parent. Though we saw each other less after I started living on my own and working, my mother was very kind, taking me to my favorite amusement parks many times when I was little and even making it possible for me to attend university despite our tight finances. Now that such a gentle mother had left this world after her long fight with illness, but I was preoccupied with the enigmatic words she left behind. Run away right now. I returned to my childhood home for the first time in a while to prepare for the funeral. Wait, what's this? Entering the living room filled with nostalgia, I found the room in disarray. Drawers and closets had been especially ransacked, and upon closer inspection, I realized my mother's valuables had been stolen. Even the necklace I had given her with my first paycheck was gone. I immediately contacted the police, but they suggested it might be the work of a serial burglar that had been active in the area. Leaving the matter in the hands of the police, I faced the day of the funeral. Many people came to mourn my mother's death that day. People who had been kind to us in the past attended, which brought back fond memories, but I also felt the pang of loss, realizing I would now have to live without any close family. However, I resolved to send my mother off with a smile, sharing memories of her with others. After the funeral, a man approached me. "It's been a while. Do you remember me?" I didn't recognize the familiar face of the young man who claimed to be an acquaintance of my mother's. Who might you be? "Well, you were little, so it's no surprise you don't remember. I'm your brother Ethan," he said with a smile. I had never heard of having a brother, so I was shocked, nor had I ever met this man. Seeing my disbelief, Ethan showed me a photograph. "Look, here's Mom, and this is you." Indeed, the woman in the photo was unmistakably my mother from her younger days, and beside her stood a child that looked just like Ethan. It appeared he truly was my brother, and I felt a surge of joy knowing I had family. But why had my mother hidden his existence? I had no idea I had a brother. That's surprising. Mom's gone, and it's been tough, hasn't it? From now on, I'll be there to support you. I nodded at my brother's words, but questions lingered. I had begged for a sibling many times as a child. If I had a brother, why wouldn't my mother have introduced us? Perhaps there were circumstances I didn't know about. I forced myself to accept this and then suddenly thought to ask Ethan another question. "By the way, what about Dad? Isn't he here?" Dad said he didn't want anything to do with me, so he didn't come." "That's a shame. I'd like to meet him someday. A cruel man, he is. Just like he abandoned you too." It felt harsh that a man who had once been married wouldn't attend his former wife's funeral. Afterward, Ethan kept in touch, concerned about me, and we often dined together. He told me that our father had repeatedly asked our mother for money after the divorce and that he was worried he might start coming to me next. Having a brother who cared so much about me felt incredibly reassuring. However, as I sorted through my mother's belongings, I was about to discover a shocking truth. It's been a month since Mom's funeral, and I was halfway through sorting her belongings when I found a notebook in her drawer. Flipping through it, it seemed to be her diary. She'd been writing in it daily since before the divorce, and there were as many as 10 volumes. With a feeling of guilt towards my mother, I opened the page. Seeing her beautiful handwriting, nostalgia almost brought me to tears. Ethan came to visit, despite the agreement with my ex that I'd never see him again. I was so happy. I secretly gave him some money. I couldn't help but let out a chuckle. To think that such exchanges were happening without my knowing. As I read on with amusement, the tone began to change. Ethan showed up again but just said money and left quickly. I started to feel a sense of unease with every behavior of my brother that Mom had recorded. From this page on, his behavior seemed increasingly strange. Today I was threatened by Ethan again and ended up giving him money. It was clearly written in my mother's handwriting. Threatened? What did that mean? I had a bad feeling. If I refuse to give money frequently, I get told harsh things. Today it was your only worth is your money. The content, written in trembling letters, seemed far too real to be a lie. Why would my brother say such things? I'm just bearing it because it must be his rebellious face, convinced by the words my mother had written to reassure herself. I turned the page only to find something unthinkable. Today when I refused, he brought a knife from the dining room and threatened me. I got scared and gave him the money. I know I can't keep this up, but what should I do? I was stunned that such a thing had happened, shocked at my brother's true nature and ashamed for not having realized it earlier. This person seemed like a stranger compared to the brother who had smiled kindly on that day. Even though he's my precious son and we live apart, I can't go to the police. It might be my fault for the divorce. My heart clenched at that sentence. I understood her feelings, but I could no longer see the person who threatened my beloved mother with a knife as my brother. He said he would squeeze money out of his sister too. I absolutely don't want that to happen. It seems she kept the existence of my brother a secret thinking of me, but Mom's diary told me everything. I must protect her from Ethan before I'm gone. That phone call that day must have been her trying to tell me about my brother. She must have been afraid that harm would come to me. The thought of it made it impossible for me to forgive my brother, who had caused Mom so much suffering and attended her funeral with an innocent face. Holding my mother's diary, I resolved to take revenge on my brother. What's the rush calling me here? I have something to discuss with you, Ethan. 3 days after reading the diary, I called my brother to our family home. It seemed dangerous to be alone with a man who would use a knife to threaten, but I had a plan. I know what you did to Mom. He was briefly startled but quickly regained his composure, intending to keep it hidden. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. You've been extorting money from her by threatening her, haven't you? No. I don't know what you're talking about. He refused to admit it, continuing to play the kind older brother. Realizing this would get us nowhere, I decided to act to make him confess. Before Mom died, she told me everything. I pretended not to know, all for revenge. Hearing this, his demeanor changed. With a sigh, he slumped into the chair, looking at me with annoyance. "Ah, so you found out, huh? Why did you threaten Mom?" And with a knife, he pondered theatrically and then said with a smile, "Stress relief?" His smile had no trace of guilt. He believed he had done nothing wrong. "That's outrageous. Mom didn't even go to the police because she cared about you. That's only natural. I'm her son. I was just getting my allowance." He said this without a trace of remorse. I felt dizzy. I couldn't believe that this person was my blood-related brother. "I'm going to the police," I declared. "Huh? Without evidence, they won't listen to you." He scoffed. "I have evidence," I responded firmly, pulling out my mother's diary. "It's all here, written by Mom herself. If I just tear this up right now," he threatened, "destroying this won't help you. Mom left plenty of diaries and other evidence." His face twisted in anger, shaking with fury upon realizing he couldn't erase the evidence immediately. "So, I just need to make sure you can't go to the cops, right?" he yelled, kicking the chair and knocking everything in the room to the floor. Vases and glasses shattered, creating a terrible mess. Once he ran out of things to throw, he dashed towards the dining room. He returned, knife in hand, inching closer to me. "If you agree to be my cash cow right here, I'll let you off." Just then, the sound of a police siren filled the air nearby. Panicked, he looked around wildly, and upon seeing the officers enter the house, he stood frozen, knife still in hand. "Why are the cops here now?" he screamed in disbelief. "You seem flustered," I noted, as the officers entered the living room. "It's because I asked them to come." "What?" he gaped, dumbfounded. I decided it was time for the grand reveal. In fact, I asked a colleague from work to call the police when the time came. "What?" I had anticipated that the diary alone wouldn't be enough evidence, so I planned to catch him in the act of threatening me with a knife. It was all an act. "Cut the crap," he shouted, lunging at me, but the officers were quick to restrain him. "Hey, stop messing around. Let me go." He struggled and flailed, trying to break free, but he was securely held down by 2 officers. Finally handcuffed, he realized there was no escape and calmed down. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I was wrong." Desperate to avoid arrest, he began apologizing profusely, his face contorted as if he was about to cry. "No matter how much you apologize, Mom can't hear you anymore. I don't care about that. Just don't involve the cops, please." To me and Mom, "I don't care" is not an option. She was afraid and troubled by you all the time. A parent is nothing but a cash cow for their kids. He kept spewing insults, but ignoring his tantrums. The officers led him away as he started to sob. "I was wrong. Please, no police. I will never forgive you for tormenting Mom." "Officer, please take him away. As I made my statement, he distorted his face in a last-ditch attempt at self-preservation, a pathetic sight with his nose running, as the police took him away. The police investigation later revealed he was a habitual burglar, and he was sentenced to prison. Perhaps his constant aversion to the police was due to his fear of his crimes being exposed. He had also been the one who ransacked our family home. He pawned the necklace I had given to Mom, and I lost something she cherished. Even in prison, he continued to cause trouble, extending his sentence with each incident. Though I lost my dear mother, I am now engaged to the colleague who called the police that day. He is kind and generous, and I am fortunate to have met him. Surely Mom is watching over us from heaven when we visit her grave to share the news. I have no doubt she will be pleased.